Thank you so much for joining us on day 2 of the first Type 3D Printing Conference. We're so glad to have everyone with us today. We had an amazing day 1. Day 2 is looking to be just as stellar. We're looking forward to some amazing engagement, incredible speakers, more expertise across several areas of the 3D printing industry. And as a reminder, this conference features 147 women as your speakers for the full agenda. And starting today, we've got a keynote of some women who I think many of you will recognize. We're joined this morning in a power panel of some incredible leaders across the 3D printing industry. And I could introduce them, but I think it would be better if you hear from them yourself. We do have Marie Langer, the CEO of EOS, Michelle Bockman, the CEO of 3D Control Systems, Sonita Lontoh, the CMO of 3D Printing and Digital Manufacturing at HP, and Vicki Holt, the CEO of Proto Labs. Ladies, I'd love it if you would introduce yourselves and what you're doing. We're so happy to have you on stage. Michelle, why don't you kick it off for us?
Sure, thanks, Sarah. As Sarah said, I'm CEO and co-founder of 3D Control Systems. Some people may know us as 3D Printer OS, and that's why she said that. But to back up, I'll give you a little history about where I came from, especially for some of the university students that we have here today. I started my journey into STEM, back when I knew when I was about 10 years old or 12 years old that I wanted to be an engineer. And so I went to college, an all engineering school in the Midwest. The school actually had been an all-male school years before, so you can only imagine the ratio of females to males, and it was my first sort of interaction or actually just seeing how many men were there, and I was the only female in the room. So that was kind of the first time that I ever experienced sort of that only so many females being in tech. I never really understood that it was unusual for women to be in engineering, at least in the 90s or the late 80s when I was in college. So that was kind of my first interaction with that. Then I went into automotive and spent some time in Detroit as a manufacturing engineer. So hands-on, a practitioner. So I really have this sort of technical weave throughout my career, even though I led a lot of P&Ls. Manufacturing is my passion, and reason why I went into 3D printing. But I spent most of my career at GE in GE automation, so connecting equipment back when big data was actually little data. People weren't talking about data, but people wanted to actually connect machines. And so it was something that I was really passionate about. And I went from engineering to the commercial, where I was in sales, and spent some time in technical sales at GE, as well as Nikon before that with metrology equipment, which those of you in 3D printing, you all know that it's important to have a QA process at the end of your production line. And so I was at GE Healthcare a good portion of my career. I spent a lot of time in acquisition businesses, as well as startups that GE had bought, sort of either turning them around or scaling those businesses, and ended up out in California about 5-6 years ago in our GE Digital business in an industrial cybersecurity startup. And really loved that feeling. And reason why then, when I was recruited over to HP, we had 3D printing and sort of this like startup within a corporation. Loved that, but I still wanted to get into the real startup world where there wasn't like a corporate oversight. And so that's when I came over to 3D Printer OS. And now we have a new platform that we're getting ready to launch. I've been here since September, really loving it. It's a seed-funded company, so we're super small, but we're scrappy and just excited about this new product that we're launching. And you guys should just check it out. So that's a little bit about my career, and yeah, in a couple of minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Vicki, would you care to take us quickly through your journey? Vicki, you're muted still.
There, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
That's going to be, the whole pandemic word there. You're still muted. It's great to be here, Sarah. And it's great to be here with 147 women leaders in this space. This is awesome. Well, I'll quickly take you through what's been an awesome 42-year career for me in manufacturing. So I also started in STEM, actually had a chemistry degree from Duke University, and I joined Monsanto Company way back in 1979. So I'll put you backdate that. And I was one of the first 2 women salespeople ever to be hired to Monsanto Chemical Company. So just like you, Michelle, being in a room with a lot of men. I spent 23 years with Monsanto, starting in sales, but then quickly moved into a number of product management, business management, P&L accountability roles, things ranging from water treatment chemicals to acrylic fibers. And I culminated my career there with the spinoff of Solutia from Monsanto, leading the films business. From there, I went to PPG Industries, and I led their glass and fiberglass business there for 8 years, which was awesome. And while I was at PPG, I had a chance to join a board of directors at a company called Spartec, publicly traded company, and was asked then 5 years into that board role to join there as their CEO. So that was my first CEO role. I was there for about 3 years, and we sold that company. And then I had this opportunity come across my desk to join Proto Labs. And I have to tell you, this has been the most fun I have had in my entire career, because when you look at my background, most of it's been traditional manufacturing. And now I've had the opportunity to really learn how technology and software really combine with manufacturing to create value. So Protolabs is a leading e-commerce technology-enabled manufacturer of custom parts. And we do that by digitizing both injection molding, CNC machining, sheet metal, but also 3D printing. And it's just an awesome platform, and it's been a great ride for the last 7 years and a lot of fun. So great to be here.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I've been to some of Proto Labs facilities, and the additive setup is really delightful.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for being here. And Marie, I'd love it if you would take us through your journey.
Yeah, so first of all, let me thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here, and especially with all this other great women on the panel. So I was really looking forward to this chance to speak and to share and exchange perspectives here. So I'm Marie Lange, CEO of the US. I'm the second generation of the founder and owner family of the US. My father, Hans Lange, founded the US 30 years ago, and since then, I think made a lot of noise in the market around additive manufacturing. First of all, pretty much focusing on rapid prototyping, and of course now in the last 10 years, we made like this huge transformation also to look into serial production and really prove that this technology can play a major role there. And yeah, so for me as a daughter, of course, I kind of was pretty close when I grew up. And so, yeah, I asked my dad at this one point, okay, so because of course, like, you know, the company was, you know, an entrepreneurial, like our family-owned company, kind of like a thing. When you're like younger, it's getting a topic like, would you mind like taking over at this one point? And I wasn't really sure. And then I'm asking, you know, what would I need to study for this? And then he told me like law or business. And then I was just like thinking that I definitely cannot study what my dad told me to, you know? And so I got really interested in psychology, because for me, it was always important to understand why do people behave like they behave, and how do we tick as kind of like human beings, and what is really important. So I kind of started studying psychology, and then of course I got kind of interested in also organizational psychology, leadership, all this kind of things, and did then in the end also a master in business, and was actually pretty much interested always in in like some things that have an impact, you know. So kind of like you have this terms of social entrepreneurship that kind of like became very huge a few years ago, and impact investing and these kind of things. So several years I kind of like gained some experience in that field, because I always wanted to do something that really matters. And at this one point, I realized that what my dad did really matters. And I really want to contribute to make it matter even more in the world. So that's how I actually ended up after, of course, doing a lot of, how do you say it, like jumping into the business, really trying to understand how it works, and being a lot with my dad and with, of course, our managers in the company, and understanding and learning. And then last year I decided to take over, and since then I had a lot of fun. COVID, of course, was challenging, but I think also we all learned a lot, and it contributed to really push our industry. And yeah, so here I am now as a CEO. I'm looking forward to push that forward the next 30 years, maybe. Let's see if it lasts for that long.
Awesome, Marie. Thank you. Sonita, I'd love to hear about your journey now, please.
All right, thank you. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for having me here today. So yeah, I'm the division CMO for HP 3D printing business. And I would say my journey is quite interesting, because probably it's not kind of the traditional marketing journey. So I started, like Michelle, I was very good in math when I was growing up. And so I wasn't sure what major I should have in college. I asked my mom that. I said, hey, I'm kind of like interested at the intersection of math and business. And she said, oh, you should major in industrial engineering operating research. And I didn't even know what that was, but that's what my major was. And so I did that. And then right after I graduated college, I didn't really know actually what area or which functional area or industry I wanted to do. And so tried many things. And I graduated around, I would say, the first .com bubble in San Francisco. And so at that time, there's a lot of opportunities for people, especially from my school, to actually start companies. And so believe it or not, actually while I was in my last year of my school, I went to Berkeley for engineering. I met two friends from school, and we started a company, like an online game company. Did that for 2 years, and eventually sold it to like a larger competitor. And then after that, I worked in several software companies here in Silicon Valley. I even had a stint in management consulting with Bain in San Francisco. And then I'm like, well, it's time to go back to graduate school. And so I decided to take some time off. Went to graduate school, still kind of interested in that intersection of, engineering, technology, and business. I got my master's in engineering from MIT and also MBA from Northwestern. And I think it was really in graduate school that I started just developing, a few guiding principles. And the first one was, I just realized I really love this intersection of new technology that enables, new business models. And then the second, like Marie, I wanted to work in an area that's, that is additionality, contributing something more to society instead of just selling products. And so after graduate school, I think, that was the time that I leveraged these two guiding principles. And then it just so happened, I got into the industrial IoT space, focusing mainly on, enabling digital transformation, primarily on energy and infrastructure sector, and have done this both with smaller venture-backed Silicon Valley startups, but also with new digital businesses of large companies like Siemens and PG&E. So it was about 3 years ago, I was at Siemens at their new digital business. I got a call from HP, and to be honest with you guys, I never actually thought of HP as a possibility, because the HP that I knew is more of a, computer and printer company. But the person who called me said, hey, they have this new startup business. It's enabling digital transformation. Granted, it's for the manufacturing sector. Would you be interested to come? And so I viewed the opportunity as attractive at the time, because I saw parallel between industrial IoT enabling digital transformation in infrastructure and additive manufacturing enabling digital transformation in manufacturing sectors. And I've been here for 3 years. Of course, Michelle was my colleague, and we're still good friends today. And it has been quite an interesting journey.
I certainly believe that. HPs are some of my other favorite facilities I've been to, both in Palo Alto and Barcelona. Oh gosh, and Corvallis. I've seen a lot of HP, but it certainly is a startup within such a big company. So I think when you're looking for something disruptive, this technology has really brought us together from a variety of backgrounds. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about this technology, this advanced manufacturing technology, is that there are so many paths into it. For my part, I have an undergrad degree in theater and in English. And so, of course, I started my own company focused on 3D printing editorial services. So there's no one route into additive manufacturing. So I think it's so interesting to see the paths you've each taken and how this technology found you all and how your ambitions brought you into leadership roles within this dynamic industry. And with such varied career paths, Marie, I think it's really interesting that you're a legacy in this. You actually got to grow up around this technology. What was it like to really be, around this forever?
So I think as a kid and as a young girl, for me, it was really boring. The only exciting thing was if there was a summer party and there was cool food or there, was good music. And of course, my father would take me to the company and show me around. But, as a kid, you cannot really grasp what it's the product the company is doing. I thought it would be just like normal machines. They didn't really look very engaging, so I was, as a kid, I was not that impressed because I just didn't know. And then, of course, over time, when then sometimes my dad kind of said oh, we have with Adidas now this kind of project, or we have, when he started to mention names, then it was, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then I kind of realized that there's something cool behind it. And then, of course, I got more interested and I wanted to understand better what do we do there. Then he, of course, was explaining, and my dad is very visionary, but can be very outspoken. So, of course, there were a lot of stories about customers. So that was what made me excited. But in the end, what really convinced me that I want to contribute here is that I kind of really realized how much, and we're, of course, just starting. We really need to be all aware of that. But that when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to the effects, and we call it in our company purpose, we call it responsible manufacturing. We really believe that we can have a huge effect here. And also looking now at the whole digitization, I think we will also later talk a little bit about that. There is such a perfect fit. And then also everything we experienced during COVID now. So in the end, it really convinced me that we have something revolutionary, very disruptive here that can really contribute to a beneficial world, to kind of a world where we're more conscious with the resources we use and kind of can offer different concepts to the world. And that was actually something that really convinced me. And I understood very late, actually, because my dad always explained it to me, but I really wanted to see proof, And so then I started to dig into it more, and that's what really convinced me that I want to contribute here. And it's not only EOS, even if EOS might be a well-known company in this industry, but it's a whole ecosystem of companies that is contributing to really showcasing in the world that additive has something to give here. And we all have to work together, actually, to really make this work on large scale. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
That's great. And I think that's such an important thing to highlight as well, that kind of global and collaborative approach as we're doing all of this. And Vicki, Proto Labs just had a pretty major acquisition, and you also recently announced your upcoming retirement. So congratulations on an incredible career path so far, and what a legacy you're leaving behind you as the industry sadly loses you. But, congratulations to everything that's happening. What are some of kind of the key takeaways you might like to share from all of the dynamic goodness you've been seeing lately?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. It has been such an incredible journey. I'm just so grateful for all the experiences that I've had. But as I mentioned before, this last experience here at Proto Labs has been one of the most fulfilling. And I think it's because of this realization that manufacturing is at the edge of what is a huge transformational change using information technology and software coupled with manufacturing engineering technology to really bring unique value to companies and manufacturers across our space. And it's all about solving unique problems. And so, it's kind of a takeaway for me when you think about this whole digitization is to think about the problem you're trying to solve and how software can really, and technology can get you there. Our founder, Protolabs, 22 years ago, he was an entrepreneur, an inventor, and his problem was it would take him a month or 2 months to get a custom injection molded part in order to make a prototype. So he set about really reinventing injection molding at the time and automated all the front-end engineering associated with making a custom part. And today, Protolabs turns injection molded tooling in as little as a day. Fast forward to, we see CNC machining did the same, and then 3D printing. And what 3D printing brings the engineer is this huge design flexibility to take out material, to lightweight, to be able to take out manufacturing steps. And we're just at the very beginning of what this technology is going to open up for manufacturers and engineers. So to me, the takeaway is the power of IT and software with manufacturing, coupled with the problems manufacturers need to solve, kind of coupling with what Marie said. I think manufacturers have the technology now to really be able to solve some of the world's biggest problems: climate change, sustainability, life cycle management. There's a lot we can do, and now we have a lot of tools to do it. So it's just a great time. And even though I'm retiring, I will be cheering from the sidelines because we're just at the beginning here.
That's so well said, and we're so grateful for everything you've done for this industry and helping to propel these technologies and this important messaging forward. We are all in this together and pushing these things forward that can make a real impact. And a lot of that comes from the leaders who are driving these technologies. And Michelle, Sonita, you've both talked about your experiences just now in kind of ascending to your leadership roles through very varied means, different journeys. What are some of the things that you both have observed, especially as women in such a male-dominated space and now in such huge leadership roles and acting as role models and drivers of change?
Well, I can go first. Sonita and I talk all the time. So I've seen, what was interesting is that I worked at HP, that's where I met Sonita, and it's a hardware company. And, so I really got to know a lot of customers. And so as Vicki was saying, the digitization and the solutions and, we're just at the very beginning. So, when you bring hardware, and now I'm a software company, and when I was over there, I saw and I talked to customers about all of the issues that they would have, or the challenges that they would have when they had like HP equipment, EOS equipment, Proto Labs, Carbon, Trump, all of this, and they're trying to run a manufacturing facility in the traditional way, which they all have the challenges. It made me way more empathetic as I came into this role, and so I feel like knowing what their challenges were back when I was in the hardware company at HP, and now being able to bring a solution to them is like so key in solving some of that wonkiness in their process. Having to go manually over to this system and turn it on, having to transfer a file, from one system to another, and it just is a lot of waste in the system. And being able to automate that and working with partners. Actually, HP, we just signed an agreement where we're partners with the API, so that'll be a nice seamless transition. So, and Marie, I'll be talking to you, and Vicki, maybe you too next on doing the same thing, like just trying to pull all of that together for the customers, because they are trying to run their facility, and it's taking way too much time, way too much labor, and And as a female leader, because you had asked about females leaders, I continue to scout for talent and try to bring females over, into our organization, or mentor, or, when I go to a customer and there's a female, maybe STEM intern there, or someone earlier in their career, or even an executive, there's a bond there. And even some of my female customers from before, I have very good relationships with, and we stay in touch. And it's really helped a lot. So I think I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, and I guess what I would add to that, as I was listening to Michelle, Marie, and Vicki here, I think definitely this is a generalization, but I do think female leaders in general are more empathetic and collaborative, and I would summarize it like in how, let's say, how I've been evolving my leadership principles, or how I've seen other female leaders have evolved their leadership principles. I think first and foremost, and especially for all of us, like we're working in such a male-dominated technology and manufacturing sector, right? I think like female leaders or leaders in general are customer-centric. They really take the time to understand customers' pain points and can articulate how their solutions, even in collaboration with other solutions from other companies, can actually help solve customer problems. And actually what Michelle and I both, encourage while we work together here is to encourage our engineers who, they're brilliant, but, at times they're, I think, in love with their own kind of like feats and speeds and the features of the thing. It's faster, it's greater, but they lost sight of that customer focus. I think that's one. And then the second thing that I've also noticed, that maybe because we're more empathetic, maybe because we're more collaborative, I think we also pay more attention, especially as we become more established in our career, to develop other people as leaders, and perhaps some of you guys know John Maxwell, this concept, the 5 levels of leadership. And at the end of the day, leaders develop other leaders instead of other followers. And just in my personal experience, I have noticed that, female leaders seem to pay more attention to that, and maybe is more intentional and more willing in developing others as leaders. And then I think last but not least, because we're more collaborative and inclusive, I also noticed that, female leaders are more open to having teams from diverse backgrounds, So for instance, here, at HP, we have team members who come not only from technical background, but also from, more creative background, people with software experience, hardware experience, material services, from small companies, from big companies. And basically what you get when you mix people from diverse background with diverse experiences, you get what I would call the value network, where kind of the interconnectedness and interdependencies among the different members of the network can actually advance and benefit the network as a whole, rather than just the individual members. And this can actually apply to the industry as well. So I was talking in the context of internal of a company, but at the end of the day, even for us, for the Additive to move forward, I think all the players in the industry have to collaborate together and mix people, with diverse background.
I think it's, yeah.
I was just going to add one point. I totally agree. And I saw in the chat, people were saying STEAM instead of STEM. And art is definitely a part of that. I actually had hired an artist to be on one of our teams. And, with that diversity that Sonita was talking about, the team rocked. It was awesome to see her bringing in this different perspective. And she's probably here today, listening in, and she knows who she is. And it brought a whole different level of collaboration and solutions to our customers that I hadn't seen ever in my career, and that was at HP. And it was, so hats off to the STEAM and diversity. So I just wanted to add that little comment.
No, I think that's amazing, and bringing up that collaborative and diverse aspect across all of these conversations we're having right now is so critical, because a lot of times when we say diversity, people are like, oh, you mean more women? And I mean, yes, we do, but we also need mean more educational backgrounds, more racial backgrounds, more orientations, more levels of ability, more socioeconomic backgrounds, more viewpoints. And diversity means so many things, and opening that up and bringing in those different ways of thinking really opens up new ways of approaching problems. And isn't that what we're doing with additive manufacturing? It's all creative problem solving. And so having more voices in that conversation leads to more ways of thinking, more ways of approaching it. And yes, the chat is just amazing right now as well. We're out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with additive. We're taking the box away. We're taking the mold away. And a lot of times the tooling, like we can just create, and coming at it different ways with different leadership styles. We are starting to run a little bit low on time, and I want to make sure we get to some Q&A. And also for everyone joining us live, please do throw in questions to the Q&A box on the side, and we will get to those, I promise. But before we do, I want to make sure not to jump over part of what we had talked about when we were preparing for this panel. And that was where each of you had a focal point of advice that you would focus on. We talked about bringing your advice, your leadership look into just one word or one phrase as just a takeaway for leadership. And Marie, I would love to just highlight your word as we begin here.
Yes, of course. So my word is being courageous, or courage, actually. And why I want to throw that in here is because that's something I had to be a lot in the last 1.5 years. And I think if I wouldn't have had that in me already before, and I most probably wouldn't be where I am, because I think that speaking up and also proposing different point of views and different perspectives, if you're kind of working in a world where everything seems set already and very dominated by specific things, how you should do things. And then I came here as a 34-year-old woman challenging a little bit the status quo, and of course not everyone was happy about it. But what I can tell you is that everyone was really impressed that I really do this, because I think at the beginning they were just like, okay, she's kidding. She will realize what she's getting herself into, and then she will, say, okay, thank you, it's not for me. And I think a lot of, people in the company at EOS, but also around, they kind of really realize, okay, she has the courage to really walk the talk, to really make sure decisions are made that are tough, to speak out if she feels that it's important, to speak up for values, for diversity, for a lot of things that are so important and dear to my heart. And I think really our society needs even more, and our industry also needs more, even if we are already innovative and creative. We also can improve a lot here, and at EOS, we definitely need to, and that's something, I wanted to chime in here, because I think, courage is something that we all need, and I all wish you to explore within yourself where it is, because we all have it.
I think courage is such an important thing to highlight. Nothing about this journey is easy. And even as a legacy, Marie, you've worked so hard to get where you are and accomplish all that you've done so far, and I can't wait to see what's next to come. Vicki, I'd love to touch on your one piece of key advice.
Well, my one phrase I'd like to share is continuous learning. And like I said, I've just had such an awesome opportunity to play a lot of different roles. And in each one, I've learned so much. And you take here, even here, the last 7 years of my career, I have learned more in the last 7 years about software development and IT and how it matches together, and software architecture. I mean, it's been amazing. Cybersecurity, unfortunately, has also been on a learning curve. So it's just never stop learning. Keep your humility and understand that it's the people around you who have a tremendous amount of knowledge that you can learn from and gain from.
Amazing. Education doesn't stop outside of the classroom, and I think we all need to take notice that Vicki, who's about to retire, is talking about the importance of learning up until just every day. And I think we can all learn from that. Michelle, let's touch on your word.
Mine is resilience. And it's easy to say that in this last year, and I won't go into this last year, but before that, like in your career, I think being resilient is really important, especially for females. I would say that when life throws curveballs at you, you know, being able to like pick yourself up and just move on. And I think with females specifically, we start to lose our confidence a little bit. And it's about like, okay, you know, selectively forgetting some of that past, learning from it and moving on. And last night I was, I belong to this women executive group, and Jane Fonda presented, and she said something. She said, "Put starch in my spine." And I thought that was really interesting. And she was talking about this and putting starch in her spine, meaning like be tougher. And so, you know, resilience, just get over it and move on and learn from it and just keep, you know, a positive attitude and keep going. And that's I think that's held well for me, although I've lost that once in a while. So bringing it back to it, I think it's important.
I love it. I think that's wonderful. And Sonita, let's touch on your word now, please.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. I think my one word is purpose. And, you know, I think this probably would be useful for everyone, but even more so perhaps for most of you who are just starting your career or in university. And so, you know, as I became more established in my career, you know, I had mentored some young people. And I noticed that a lot of them these days, you know, they want to pursue their passion because they think that's what's going to make them happy. And as a result, you know, they focus a lot on the passion, and sometimes they get very impatient. So I have mentees who, like, you know, she went to work at the car company, and then in 2 months she's like, oh, this is not my passion. You know, I need to look for something else, which, you know, might not be the right thing to do. But don't get me wrong, I think passion very important, and I think all of us, you know, we want to work in an area that we're passionate about. But what I found, you know, which I'm sure most of you who are a little bit more advanced in your journey, you found that through happiness and kind of satisfaction, really doing from the intersection of, you know, what you love, which is your passion, but also what you're good at, which is your skills, because we're not always good at everything, right? And most importantly, having that purpose, which is serving like a greater needs, what the world needs. And what I've noticed over time that people who are actually working hard to solve, you know, the biggest problems, also oftentimes compensated in the biggest ways, perhaps not in financial terms, sometimes it does, but not all the time, but more importantly in human satisfaction terms. And so I guess I want to just close by saying that, you know, as all of you think of your journey, especially those early in your career or in university, would really highly encourage you to think of how you can combine your passion with your skills and most importantly with your purpose.
Thank you, Sonita. I think that's incredible advice, and we would all do well to listen to it. So we're going to go now into some of the Q&A from those joining us today. It is a very busy Q&A. We're going to get to as many questions as we can. So panelists, I'm going to ask you to have brief answers. Brevity is the soul of wit, after all. I struggle with that, obviously, as I continue to ramble, but I'm going to ask you to be better than me here. Our top voted question right now is, what is, in your opinion, the biggest bottleneck in adoption of additive manufacturing at this moment? Is it, for example, people, skill set, software, material, print speed, post-process, end-to-end automation? What's holding back adoption?
So from our experience, of course, it's always having educated people who really know how to work with this technology. And then, of course, it's also cost, you know, as in many cases, it's still very not really cost sufficient, or at least not if you only look at specific parts of the manufacturing chain. So that's kind of our experience, but I'm sure there are other thoughts on it.
I'll build on that. You know, remember, manufacturers are making products that have to meet form, fit, function, and cost. in their customers' world. And so they are always going to be weighing all of the different elements versus different manufacturing technologies. So to me, the thing that's holding it back, it's what I mentioned before, the power of additive is designing for additive manufacturing in a way that you take advantage of the technology in order to create the value proposition in your final product that is going to economically make sense. So we've got to design for it, and then the technology does also continue need to develop both in terms of cost and materials. But the biggest piece, I think, is getting the mind around how to design for additive manufacturing.
Yeah, and I would add to what Vicki just said. You know, it is very application specific, and I think we have to be realistic. I don't think additive would be the end all be all. It's a tool in the toolbox, right? And it will be used where it makes sense, both from a business case perspective and from a technical and cost perspective. And it's very application specific. You know, the use of additive for certain applications are different than others. And I think that education, you know, the ability and the knowledge to be able to take full advantage of additive, which is usually designing for additive rather than trying to fit additive within, you know, design for traditional manufacturing, is very, very important.
Absolutely.
I agree with all of it. I mean, it depends applications, quality, you know, designing, then it's all about quality and cost. And so everything you all said, I second it or third it.
We are in accord. I love it. Our next question focuses back on your perspectives as female leaders in this industry. How can non-executive men individually empower women? This seems especially important in AM.
Allies. That's how. I think that when, especially if you, as a female, you have a relationship with someone, say you have an idea, you're coming into a meeting, you know, run the idea by one of the males and get there, especially if he has some influence, get their feedback, get their support, get your ally, and bring him to the meeting and make sure he supports you. Or he, you know, massages the idea a little bit better if you can't, so the person that you're pitching it to understands it. And so I think that's pretty powerful. Male allies.
Definitely. We're going to move on to the next question just so we can get to as many as we can now. And I think allyship is the key takeaway from that one for sure. There was a lot of talk about collaboration. With so many acquisitions going on, when does a collaboration discussion turn into an acquisition discussion? We have seen a lot of acquisitions, including Vicki's, happening in 2021 so far. So I think this is a very timely one. So where is that conversational line between collaboration and acquisition?
I like to think acquisitions really have to be serving a strategic purpose for a company. I mean, there is one where you might say, okay, acquisition might be a roll-up approach, but as Protolabs looks at acquisitions, it really is where it really has to meet a strategic purpose of what we need to do to service our customers better. And so sometimes a collaboration can do that well. Sometimes you really want to bring it in a way that can deliver unique value to the customer. So I think it really varies, but it truly has to meet a strategic need.
Yes, and just to add on that, like really like Vicki also emphasized, being built around the value proposition that you really want to offer. And I think the more it is core of the value proposition that you need to offer, the more you need to be aware of that you really need to be able to influence it fully and to connect it to your culture, to your way of working, and so I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I definitely think that that's in most of the cases a great way forward. But if it's really core, then maybe M&A can be a good opportunity.
Okay, we're going to unfortunately have time for just one final question. So our final question is, when talking about purpose, how does one experiment in the different opportunities of the AM world without jumping from job to job until you find the one you really love?
Yeah, I would say the good news, I think, for all of us in the AM world, at the end of the day, I think as an industry, you know, we do serve a purpose, right? We are trying to enable digital transformation for manufacturing in order to help, you know, customers and also, in a sense, society achieve all these benefits, including more sustainable manufacturing and all that. So I think in terms of the purpose, you can always find it, like in any companies that are in this industry. But in terms of what you love or how happy you are in your own situation, I think that really depends on the environment that you're in, because, like a company like HP can be really big, and it doesn't mean you can be happy, everywhere. But if you have, I think, a good environment where you have a good team, you have a good boss, you have trust, you feel that you're contributing, you can grow, then I think that is that intersection of, doing something that has purpose, which is the industry, like enabling sustainable manufacturing. But at the same time, you're also in an environment where you feel you're fulfilled and you can grow.
And I know that's very important to everyone on this panel today, finding that environment to grow. And it's not always easy. I know in my personal case on that journey, I founded my own company, and today I get to decide who I work with, and I only work with the people I want to, and I love it. I know we don't all have that flexibility. It's one thing to be a writer in this space, a very different thing to be an engineer. But it's finding that place for you, and it fits along with everything else we've talked today, collaborating, finding the right tool for the right job. And when it's additive, amazing. When it's not, it's not. And we need to not force things where they shouldn't be, and just find where everything goes and talk about all of these conversations that we're fortunate to get to keep having in events like this. And also with amazing leaders like this. The four of you are absolutely role models to so many of us in this industry, and so many people are looking to follow in your footsteps. So I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. The TYPE conference is all the richer for having your perspectives. Thank you for joining us today, and we're so grateful for your time. Congratulations, Vicki. We wish you the happiest retirement. You have earned it.
Thank you. I'll be in the Protolabs room if anybody has questions. So.
Thank you. And Sonita, Marie, Michelle, we look forward to seeing what you do next, and for the years to come in 3D printing, continuing to pave the way as we all continue on the trails you've all blazed for us.
Thank you, Sarah. And if I could just say one thing, as we're very much looking into diversity right now, I also want to address that to our female audience here. We're actually searching for a sales position in Europe. So if you are in the area of sales and you want to lead a small team, then please check out our company website. Sorry for just this small thing. I just wanted to emphasize that, and I was asked to do so, and I definitely wanted to say.
And there's another note, you can find that job listing on the Women in 3D Printing job board, where we do also welcome all of you to put your open positions and to look for more diverse candidates. There's also a profile candidate database available on the Women in 3D Printing website, so you can start to make those connections. Yes, there's a job board. Oh, look, a convenient link in the chat as well. So let's all keep looking for this more diverse industry, and we look forward to the next generations of leaders to come. Also check out Women in 3D Printing Next Gen, and so much more as we look forward to a continuing growing industry together. Thank you again, everyone, and we are looking forward to seeing all of you on the networking floor. Our track stages will be opening up in 20 minutes. Please network until then. Enjoy some time at the sponsors tables. They've helped us put this amazing event together, bringing us all together when we can't physically be. So please join the conversations. I'll be on the people track stage all day. Please join me. We've got some amazing speakers lined up again today. And welcome to day 2 of TYPE 3D printing. Have an amazing day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.